A really common misconception that I hear a lot in tutorials about how to make 90s jungle or drum and bass or house or hip hop or whatever is that you should just take your sample and slap a downsample effect on it and crank the sample rate way, way down like this. And there's nothing wrong with that sound, but it's not actually historically accurate as to why those samples from the 90s sound degraded in the way that they do. Contrary to how they're often described now, samplers from the 90s, such as the SP1200, didn't actually have a very low sample rate to them. Specifically, the sample rate on the SP1200 was about 26 kilohertz, which obviously is not as high as we have now, where we have 40 to 90 kilohertz samples whenever we want. But it doesn't actually make that big of a difference in terms of how degraded the audio sounds. You can probably barely hear a difference, if anything. While the sample rate was fine on those old samplers, the memory was what was really limited. So another trick that was commonly used at this time was to record the samples at a higher pitch and then to slow them down in the machine by pitching them down. So what I'm going to do is take my sample and take a small snippet of it, and then I'm going to pitch it up until it's around 2 seconds. Then in this track is where I'm going to put the sample redux. I'm going to set it to 2600 and a bit depth of 12. Then I'm going to bounce this to audio. Then I'm going to bring this sample back into my sampler and pitch it down in the sampler to compensate for pitching it up earlier. Because we have had to pitch it down, we have effectively lowered the sample rate, right? Because if you play something in at 26 kilohertz, but then you pitch it down an octave, you've actually effectively lowered the sample rate to 1300 kilohertz. So that's why those samples have the degraded quality that they do, is because they've been pitched down so much in the sampler, and that means that the effective sample rate is lowered, not because the sampler itself can't do high sample rates, but because it has low memory, and so you have to play everything back at a slower speed. So those higher pitched samples will have a relatively high sample rate, and then those really low pitched parts of your track are going to have a grainier sound to them. So it's a small change, but if you're looking for something to sound a little bit more authentic and a little bit closer to the actual hardware that they'd be using at the time, this is a quick little way to do that.